Good evening. This is George Katcharava and Meurmishvili in the Geo-Politicus program. And today we'll talk about Ukraine and the peace negotiations or attempt to negotiate the peace over this war between Russia and Ukraine. So, good evening. Please subscribe and like our programs and stay with us. Yeah.
Good evening. Hello, welcome everyone. Joining from Washington, D.C., and Georg is based in Tbilisi, Georgia. So we're covering many time zones as well as many different, countries that have already made statements both about Ukraine, about the U.S. Very news packed today. Ukraine related news pack today. There was a statement from President Trump. There was a statement from Vice President Pence, Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, and of course the Ukrainian side as well as the Kremlin. So we'll try to sort of um, dive into that and tell you what happened. So, Georgi, you want to kick us off with the initial, like how the morning started, because your morning was earlier than mine.
Exactly. So we will, yeah, exactly. We will have to dive in to yesterday and also digest what was happening afterwards. As we all know that today, some negotiation started in London in the presence of General Kellogg, a Ukrainian delegation, as well as a delegation of UK, France, Germany. And obviously, the discussions were around possible peace deal related to Russia-Ukraine war. But before that, there were some leaks in the press, and these leaks actually showed that uh, the U.S. Has a proposal to basically hand over Crimea, as allegedly actually, to Russian side, um, and and this was the main, I would say, point to drag Russia into the real peace process. And the statement of President Zelensky actually was very short and very clear that Ukraine will not cede Crimea to anyone, and the territorial integrity of Ukraine is out of discussions. Afterwards, this was followed by Secretary Rubio basically saying that he is not traveling to London there because there is no point. He was not explicitly stated that this is because of the statement of President Zelensky, but it was understood like that. That's why,
Yeah, it was the
mm,
scheduling. The official explanation was the scheduling complication.
exactly. And the United States was represented by General Kellogg, who is special representative of the U.S. administration in Ukraine or for Ukraine. Afterwards, today we've seen President Trump's very extended comment on Truth Social, which was actually, I would I would say, was very straightforward towards Mr. Zelensky or President Zelensky. And I don't know, maybe you want to comment on that.
Yeah, it was a fairly lengthy tweet or Truth Social posting in which President put Trump basically reiterated things that we've heard before, that he wants to end the killing of about 5,000 soldiers on both sides each week, that this war should not have ever started, that this is not America's war. And he basically pressured Zelensky, as you said, Georgi, on the issue of getting this done. So doing it now. And he, of course, talked about Zelensky again as a person who has no cards, and the person who has no cards should now make it happen. So he also said that it's not about Russia, or it's not about anything else, or in Ukraine. It's about stopping the killing. So he distanced himself from the Kremlin, or from this um, accusation that he's playing on the playing Russia's hand, basically. And he also said that nobody's pressuring Zelensky to recognize Crimea. That was very interesting to me. So that means that maybe U.S. is potentially getting ready to de facto recognize Russian domination over Crimea, but not officially recognize it as a part of the Russian Federation. We don't know any of this. What's also interesting is that in addition to Secretary Rubio canceling his participation in the UK talks, also special special representative Steve Witkoff, who was supposed to be at those talks, uh, flew to Russia instead. He did not. He did not
Participate.
participate in the negotiations. So that's also very interesting. Supposedly, this meeting was scheduled even before, so it did not happen in light of today's events. Witkoff was supposed to go to meet with Putin, but we don't know what he talks to Putin about, and we don't know if there is any pressure. If not publicly, there is nothing really, except for very occasional, very light reminders that Russia also needs to do something, also needs to make some concessions, but nothing really publicly stated. So we don't know if he's conveying messages of pressure from President Trump to President Putin. Um, we're just operating in dark here because there is nothing coming out Russia.
Very much so. Yeah, and the previously the meeting between Putin and Representative Witkoff was actually scheduled for 25th of April. So he left now. Maybe this meeting will happen a bit earlier.
Well,
But what is interesting? Just retrospected actually the reactions from different sides on the same issue, but the reaction of public in Ukraine and the political spectrum in Ukraine is very harsh, I would say. And I also
what do you
spoke
mean?
to
How do you mean harsh towards the
they
U.S.?
towards the U.S. That's what I mean. The position related to Crimea and all this related to the territorial integrity, etc. So, uh, and I actually basically tried to understand what it will take if Ukraine, let's say, agrees on this proposal related to Crimea. And the legal aspect of this is not very bright, I would say. Why? Because in order to agree on any kind of any part of Ukraine to be separated or or to be given, let's say, to another country, you have to have a national referendum.
Hmm.
But to make a national referendum, you need the parliament to vote for it. But in order for parliament to vote for it, you need to stop the or end the martial law. And if and when the martial law will be ended, then automatically there should be new parliamentary elections.
Hmm.
And then the new elected parliament should actually vote for or against referendum.
Yeah.
So we are talking about the very long timeline. But in order to all this to happen, you have to have a peace accord first.
Yes. Yes, well, at least a ceasefire of some kind.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
So basically, we are talking about when President Trump is saying that somebody has to make a decision now. This is not up to President Zelensky to make decision now, because this is much
yeah. That's
larger
why. That's why.
and complicated issue.
That's why Zelensky is saying that it's a constitutional issue for Ukraine. It's not his decision; it's the constitution. Um, it's interesting that Zelensky is also still trying to convince the Trump administration to push Russia for unconditional ceasefire for 30 days or for some period of time.
Yeah, which
And
is
once that ceasefire is achieved, then the statement was basically that we cannot negotiate everything before the firing and the killing stops. We need to stop this first, and then gradually negotiate the terms. Putin has not agreed to that yet. We'll see what this Witkoff visit will bring. That could be potentially one of the things that they talk about. That we will take this process slowly. But I think the Trump administration, in a way, is a victim of its own sort of deadline setting. That first it was 24 hours, then it was 30 or 90 days or 100 days. And it seems like it's not possible to resolve this in 100 days.
yeah, it
So,
was not carefully calculated, I would say, time wise.
yeah. So I think now everybody's. Ukrainians want. They don't want any deadlines, of course, because then that deadline, having a deadline, is basically putting them in a pressured situation. Now, I believe Russians don't want
Absolutely.
a deadline either, because I think Putin is sitting there now, and or people in the Kremlin are trying to decide, well, what's better for Russia and for this whole endeavor that they started 3.5 years ago. Is it? Are we better off if the U.S. drops out of it, or are we better off if we continue the conversation with the Americans and get as much as possible? Because if the U.S. drops out of it, there may be some bilateral relations restored between Russia and the United States, but those almost $300 billion that's frozen in Europe is going to stay in Europe. Europeans are not removing sanctions. Europeans and other Western countries are not removing sanctions on Russia. So it's interesting to see, can America's resumption of bilateral relations with Russia will really help Russia in this war? Maybe on the narratives level it will, but financially, economically, it's just unknown. So that's why I think that even in the Kremlin, they are trying to figure out, okay, what happens if America drops out? And maybe it's better to keep the Americans in again to get as much as possible from this.
Well, that's a very interesting question that you actually touched upon, and I would continue, reasoning in this regard, and talk about the already, I mean, kind of formed theoretically coalition of willing. The
Hmm.
coalition of willing, the nations that are willing to actually allocate military contingents to be sent to Ukraine. They already have done some significant work, I mean, preparatory work. First of all, they already have, as far as was actually reported, they have three locations for these troops. It's Odessa, Kiev, and Lviv to be stationed. The preliminary number of troops are 30,000, and that will involve for sure UK, France, Germany, Netherlands, some other European, but also the very active let's say, talks are held with Canada, Australia, and maybe even Japan. Well, Japan might not send troops, but they will most probably contribute some financial means for this operation, let's say. This is one. The second is that, uh, and Europe is actually getting very serious in terms of military spending. On top of 800 billion euros, which is around $1 trillion allocation that was actually agreed over a month ago, if we remember those meetings in Paris, in Versailles. Um, Germany, new government, are already working on additional funding for Bundeswehr uh, of around 500 billion euros
Yes.
for coming period, which is a very significant step in terms of military spending for this particular country. So, and what I want also to say is that you're absolutely right. When in the beginning of this, you know, negotiations, let's say, when even General Kellogg in Munich stated that uh, Europeans will not be part of the negotiation process. But today we see that the United States came to negotiate with Europeans and Ukraine in London the issues. I think there is no way that European security issue like war between Russia and Ukraine can be solved without European uh, involvement,
Of
some
course.
sort of.
Yes,
And
because
you
Ukraine is
know,
a European country. You cannot talk about
exactly.
European
And
security.
this approach is not based on NATO alliances. It's not based on European Union kind of unity of nation within the European Union. It's the coalition of willing, and this coalition of willing includes all great European states. I mean, I also forgot about Nordic states like Sweden and Norway and Finland for sure.
Mhm.
So what I want to say is that this is a grand scale European effort that cannot be ignored by Russia or by United States for that matter.
Yes. Yes, especially in this process of all the other um, processes that the U.S. is involved in. Tariffs is, of course, a big thing, tariff negotiations. I'm not sure if there's a direct connection between negotiating over Ukraine and the tariff negotiations between the European countries and the EU with the United States, but that's probably something that would have an impact. We
By the
also,
way, sorry for interruption. In our recent program where we had Tornike Gordadze as a guest, you remember he
Mhm.
stated that Europeans have a lot of leverage in terms of trade related to the high U.S. high tech
Yeah,
companies,
yeah,
and there was an information today that companies like Google, Facebook, X, etc., they were actually fined by the European Union for hundreds of millions of euros. So the process has started.
yes, that's true. It also is connected some of those um, well, they are not calling it retaliation, of course, but it's also connected with intellectual property, with other services that the Europeans have with the United States that Europeans provide. That's not a direct trade as such in products, but services. So yeah, that was I guess expected to see. But to get back to the unite to Ukraine and some of the assistance that Europeans are providing or trying to ramp up. We should also mention that Japan has made the decision to share satellite intelligence with the Ukrainians, which is very noteworthy to say the least, because Japan has not done anything like that up until now. So the Japanese are also concerned, of course, about which way this war goes. And some other Asian countries. Australia is also, of course, very supportive of Ukraine, providing arms and uh, not arms, but vehicles,
The equipment, yes.
equipment. Yes. Um, so it's very interesting. It's We need to see. I think we're in a very bad situation at the moment from the European perspective, Ukrainian, even the US perspective, because I do believe that with Ukraine losing this war, America's interests will be tremendously hurt in years to come. So that's sort of double interest here, that I want the US's interest to be protected and defended in the region for years to come. But um, I think the situation is not completely hopeless. That's my.
No. For Ukraine, I would say
I
that
think there is a, to finish this thought, Georgi, sorry.
yes, sir.
I think today Trump's Truth Social statement basically indicated that they are not pressuring Ukraine to accept the annexation of Crimea. Um, I think they want to. I think the U.S. will de facto. I don't think U.S. can just like that recognize without, or President Trump can unilaterally recognize annexation of Crimea. I think he would also need congressional approval for that, and I think that
Exactly.
would be a big stretch. I don't think that could happen. So that's why I'm saying that it would be some sort of de facto, maybe a statement about it. But I think the peace talks can recover from this. At least I'm really hopeful that that's the direction it will take.
Well, whether they will, I mean, the question now is after Secretary Rubio made a statement a couple of days ago, whether these peace talks will recover with participation of United States or
Hmm.
without participation of United States. Because, as we remember, Secretary Rubio said that if the sides will not agree on something that we are proposing, I mean, the United States is proposing, then we're out of this process, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that for
and
me
that's
was
also.
loud and clear that United States is also prepared to withdraw from the process. But uh, then what will happen? I don't know, because I think nobody's ready now to basically substitute United States in this reality.
Yeah, it depends. It depends for what. It depends who you talk to. So there are certain things. Air defense at the moment is very, very important for Ukraine, and Patriot missiles and Patriot air defense is absolutely crucial for Ukraine. So that's something that nobody can replace at this point. But the Germans have promised Tauruses, which is a very important big thing as well. So we'll see if they actually would be delivered, which will give Ukrainians some sort of reprieve or some sort of additional capabilities that they will have in case U.S. stops their support. As some of the military observers are saying, the uh, a kill box, as they call it, has not really moved in the past 6 weeks, 6 months, or even a year. Yeah, Russians are gaining some territories here. Ukrainians are advancing there. Yes, Kursk is basically, Ukrainians were basically pushed out from Kursk, but in the south and in the east, it's very marginal. It's not strategic. It's basically tactical advancement of Russia, which indicates that Ukraine can defend itself or continue defending itself. And there's also this whole new direction in this war that we're seeing that's emerging, which is the drone technology. So the Ukrainians are producing most of their drone capabilities right now. It's all domestic production. So they've produced, I believe, almost 3 million drones.
Yeah,
Uh,
in industrial scale. Yeah.
this year it could go up to 5 million by the end of the year. So they do have capabilities. Even when we were talking, remember when President Trump stopped assistance to Ukraine, there was a lot of talk about how long can Ukraine sustain itself without American weapons. And some of the estimations were, well, at the end of, some were saying at the end of the summer. Others were saying, well, that assumes that nobody else helps Ukraine in addition to, or once U.S. Stops supplying them. So with Europeans and other allies or other partners providing weapons to Ukraine, this war can go on for a very long time. Satellite images and satellite intelligence is basically the biggest thing that would be very difficult to replace for the Ukrainians. And now it's very, French are giving Ukrainians access to their satellite information. Now the Japanese will start doing it as well. So it's not quite, it's unfortunate that the war, if this scenario evolves and develops, it means that the war and the killing continues and destruction continues, of course. But on the other hand, I don't think Ukrainian front lines are just going to collapse because they don't have American weapons.
No, no, it will not collapse. Of course, it will be difficult. But as we see now, and you already mentioned French, Japanese assistance. Now we are talking about increased involvement, potential involvement of Germany, and the British military know-how that is already the kind of there for Ukraine and available. Uh, what we are talking about is the scale. Um, the scale of European assistance at the moment cannot substitute American assistance for sure. But with the time that and Ukraine can buy this time, as you said, like by the end of August, or maybe well into the autumn, etc. So with this time and with the resources that Europe can actually already is investing into its own capabilities, that assistance can probably match the assistance that was provided by the Biden administration in previous month. That is still, you know,
Hmm.
ongoing. You know,
Yeah,
and
and we
and
also
that is the hope.
we also don't know. When we're talking about assistance, we're talking about weapons that were given, or weapons and training and services and all the other things provided to Ukraine as an assistance, not as something that the Ukrainians have purchased. So even though there is no movement on the Capitol Hill at this point to approve or develop another aid package to Ukraine, we don't know if the U.S. Um, military industrial complex would not sell weapons, or what if the Trump administration would block providing sales or foreign military assistance, basically, or foreign military sales. I'm sorry, to Ukraine. That
Yeah, that's
we just don't know that. And Ukrainian Zelensky has offered to buy. Remember, in I think it was um,
10 batteries of.
one of the phone calls between President Trump and President
Yeah,
Zelensky.
yeah.
Uh,
It was Zelensky actually requesting purchasing 10 batteries of Patriot missile. I mean Patriot batteries
yes.
with missiles and everything. And European allies were actually ready to purchase them. I mean, we're talking about some 10 billion US dollars.
Mm,
I
yes.
mean, roughly.
Yeah. So we'll see when. That's why until we know everything, I think until we know some final decisions, And
But
that
I think President Trump actually said no.
I don't think he said no.
Yeah,
At least
it was reported,
I have
or
not.
maybe maybe I'm wrong, but it was. I think it was reported that he was not. Um, I mean, he didn't agree to sell.
There was a question that President Zelensky wants to purchase this weapons,
That's for sure.
and then Trump's response was, "Oh, he always wants to buy weapons." So it was not a yes or a no. It was so there is no decision. At least I have not heard about it. No decision made about not selling them to Ukraine. I'm 100% sure that there's not going to be any more free deliveries to Ukraine. That's for sure. At least from the U.S. side.
At
But
least until President Trump is in the office.
yeah, I hope the war does not continue for another 4 years. That would be
That's
terrible.
questionable, actually.
Um, yeah. So again, until we know the decisions, we're in such a fluid situation. Everything changes by the hour in some cases, by the day in most cases. So how do you even make a calculated guess about what could happen? It just changes so rapidly. So I really don't want to sound too pessimistic. It's a terrible day today. I'm not making the sound any better or any worse than it was. I think it was a disastrous day today. But at the same time, I don't think that it's done. From
No, I
Vice
think
President's statement, from Secretary of State, and from President Trump's statement. In his statement, he also said that he's looking forward to continuing to work on this peace process. So that's how I kind of started this. That there is an indication, a pretty visible indication from all three of the super high officials of the US government that this is not over yet. So we'll see. We'll see.
what about J.D. Vance, the vice president? I
Uh,
have not
it-
read his statement, actually.
he gave a short statement about
He's
in
in India, I think, right?
just before leaving at the airport. He spoke with journalists, and his statement was like all of the statements are concerning, but his statement basically, he said that we're trying to get the sides together to agree on concessions and territorial concessions. Both sides will have to give up some territory, and he did not say that it was Russia who just basically invaded the country and is occupying territory illegally.
That's
So it's not, it's not something that you would give. He also said that there could be territorial swaps, and it could have been a slip, the way he responded to this question about the line, conflict line. So he said, we're trying to freeze the conflict close to the conflict line that we have now. And then when there was a follow-up question as to what exactly does that mean, then he kind of changed it. Well, no, it's not going to be on the specific line right now, but it's going to be close to it. So that's why I think that it was not.
I will answer that
He
question.
was not. He was not very direct about this is what we're doing, but it's very clear that in the vice president's
The,
outlook,
the,
conflict should be frozen.
the answer to that can be found in the response of Mr. Peskov to a French journalist that he gave over the phone today, where Mr. Peskov said that, that uh, Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and
Kherson?
Kherson regions fully belong to Russia, and Russia does not actually control the administrative borders of all these regions. That's what is it?
Yeah. I think JD Vance meant more. Russia will have to give up some of that or not have a full control of those territories. I think
I
that's how
think
he meant it, not the other way around, not the Peskov side. But we'll see. Um, I, we'll see. It's. I think tomorrow after the meeting with in the Kremlin, we'll know a little more. There will
if
be
if
specific.
we will know something more, that will be good, because
Right.
now, as you
Right.
said, as you said, after yesterday and today's statements and information flow that we are just catching here and there, basically we are. It is not comprehensible, because, like, one information contradicts the other, and then the making analysis becomes very difficult.
Yes. No.
So,
It's at this point. I think we
and
just.
emotional, by the way, as
Uh,
well.
yes. We
Very
just
emotional.
repeat facts, or we just talk about what happened, what the statements were, what the statement means at this particular moment, and just don't make any assumptions because things are changing every day. One thing that I wanted to bring up, which I think is very both important and is creating, I think, would create some sort of conflict um, for the administration to recognize Crimea as a part of Russia is the 2017 Pompeo Declaration, when
Yes.
Mike Pompeo was Secretary of State under President Trump, of course, and
Trump.
he was very trusted Trump ally at that time. The United States State Department issued a declaration stating that Crimea is an illegally annexed or illegally occupied by Russia, and uh, Crimea is Ukraine. And the United States does not recognize Crimea as a part of Russia. So that's an official document. That's an official decision of the United States under President Trump's administration, first term. So we'll see. We'll see if he would be willing to sort of change that.
But I think, as you said, recognition of Crimea belonging to Russia, I mean, that needs a congressional approval for sure. And even the Republicans having a majority in Congress, I think that will be very difficult, and that will need some explanation as well.
Yes, I would agree with that. Most senators are very well, Democrats definitely will vote against that, and I'm sure there will be at least a dozen Republican senators who would say that we cannot just this would open Pandora's box, basically, not only for Russia but any other
The whole world, for the full
larger
world.
country or stronger militarily stronger country to invade neighbors, take territory, and then do the territorial expansion that way. So, very, very tough. We're living in a very strange world, Georg.
It's extremely, and yeah, and today is one of those days where we have more questions than answers. We're trying to answer those questions in our minds by reasoning and analyzing the situation, but not always this is possible immediately. So it has to, you know, some time has to pass first, and some additional information has to arrive, I would say.
Yes, yes. It's just we just wait and see. So supposedly tomorrow, Ukraine was supposed to sign the minerals deal.
Mm.
Mm, that was announced by President Trump or Secretary of Treasury at the White House when Maloney was in the White House, I believe. Um, so we'll see. I don't know. It could potentially it could happen because Ukrainians are have been sending signals that this is something that would be beneficial for both the United States as well as
Mhm.
Ukraine. So it could still potentially happen, and maybe that's another sort of way to keep this um, ceasefire first and peace talks later, negotiations going, because you constantly have something to talk about.
It might also open some new avenues between the United States and Ukraine and European allies as well. I think,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
hopefully,
Hopefully. So, on this happy note, let's,
on this positive note, at least.
okay, there you go, positive note. Let's say bye for now. Thank you very much to those of you who were watching. Please subscribe, hit the like button, send us questions the next time we're,
And
uh,
share our videos.
and share the videos. Yes. Thank you very much. Georgi, it was nice to
Thank
see
you.
you, as
Nice to
always.
see you too.
Uh,
Bye
take care.
bye.
Bye.